Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Protesters gathered at El Cajon Civic Center to denounce an ice raid in that city last week. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The activists are demanding answers from city officials about their cooperation with federal immigration officials. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen has the details.
More than a dozen protesters marched into El Cajon City Hall today to serve this public record request for communications between the city and federal immigration officials. They say the involvement between the city and immigration enforcement is concerning.
We're not going to stand by and watch this happen with our hands folded. No, absolutely not.
Mairena Branham is with Latino en Acción. She says the raid last week was a fear-mongering tool.
You think that fathers are going to now comfortably be leaving their homes every day, knowing that that might be the last time they're going to come home to their children? This is terrible.
15 people were arrested here in a raid last week. 4 have been charged, and another 7 are listed as material witnesses. San Diego Powder and Protective Coatings was suspected of hiring workers without legal status. The federal complaint says the business had a makeshift living space inside the facility.
Make no mistake, these types of actions terrorize working families.
Pedro Rios is with the American Friends Service Committee. He accuses the El Cajon City Council of having secret meetings with immigration officials in defiance of state law.
What we want to see is that these public officials are held accountable for the misguided direction that they have, for the policies that they're putting in place that seek to harm hardworking families.
It's like Nazi Germany.
Marine veteran Steve Yashanka says raids like the one last week shouldn't happen in America.
There should be more white people supporting this, because our black and brown brothers and sisters, Latino Americans, Native Americans, African Americans, if it can happen to some Latino folks here in El Cajon, it could happen anywhere at any time.
According to a recent Pew Research poll, 51% of Americans support deporting some immigrants here without authorization if they've committed violent crimes. The city has 10 days to respond to the public record request. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Workers from UC San Diego's medical campuses were on strike today as contract negotiations stall. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says their union is accusing the university of unfair labor practices.
The workers include physician assistants, optometrists, pharmacists, and mental health clinicians. They're represented by the University Professional and Technical Employees Union. Their contract expired in October. Tuesday's strike was over unfair labor practice charges the union has filed against the university.
We are striking right now because the university has illegally implemented healthcare increases on our members, and they're also engaging in bad faith bargaining, refusing to negotiate with roughly 1,000 workers. Many of them are healthcare workers who joined our union within the last couple of years.
A university spokesperson wrote in an email that those allegations are unsubstantiated. The union is also calling attention to what it calls a staffing crisis. Randall Turner works in IT. He's usually at the East Campus Medical Center in the college area, but he has to step in when other locations are short-staffed.
Sometimes they say, hey, we need you to go to a different site because we don't have enough techs there currently right now, and we'll go there for about a month. So I've been in the Jacobs, I've been to Hillcrest, and we've been there for months, and last year we were there, I think, like 4 or 5 times that year.
The university says its turnover rates are below the national average, and its headcount has increased. Workers from a second union representing UC workers also went on strike in solidarity. That union has been negotiating a contract for more than a year. The university says it's offered things like wage increases and more sick leave. It's working through next steps with one union and meeting with the other in the coming weeks. In the meantime, their members plan to be back at work tomorrow. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
It's a windy one out there, and wind advisories are going to continue into the evening hours. You can see this that pastel color there. There's the banner. A wind advisory remains in effect until 2 a.m. late tonight, early on Wednesday morning. And we're going to be gearing up for eventually another round of some showers into the day on Thursday. So we're not totally done with the showers, but in the meantime, still breezy, still a few showers, and even a few wet snowflakes into the mountains. We'll have your full forecast coming right up.
Today's the last day before President Trump plans to unveil sweeping new tariffs. International leaders are scrambling to mitigate the impact. The U.S. Senate is set to vote on a resolution to block tariffs on Canadian goods. A handful of Republicans say they may join Democrats in supporting it. Others voiced concerns ahead of the vote.
Tariffs will create pain for some businesses, and I think Wisconsin will be particularly hard hit with all the manufacturing and agricultural interests.
We've already heard from some of our beef processors, like popcorn exporters, that they're losing some market share in Europe.
Meanwhile, some countries are preparing to retaliate against the U.S. South Korea, China, and Japan say they're planning a joint response. Other nations say they're working on measures too. President Donald Trump's tariffs won't just make new cars more expensive. They will drive up costs of owning a car that consumers may not think about. Karen Kafa has the details.
Ford said on Tuesday that their sales surged in March, and while the company didn't specifically mention tariffs in their release, it's likely that buyers made their purchases ahead of the threat of higher prices. And if those auto tariffs do take effect as planned later this week, the cost of a new car isn't the only thing that could climb. President Trump's 25% tariffs on imported vehicles and parts are set to take effect on Thursday and could create a market for new cars similar to pandemic-era supply chain scarcity with a more costly pinch.
Autos have done nothing but increase in cost. And today we actually have higher interest rates than we did back in the COVID times.
Higher auto costs can bring higher insurance costs, which have already skyrocketed in recent years. Tariffs on items like steel and aluminum also said to push the price of auto parts higher. So repairs and used cars could cost more too.
If you need to repair your car, it costs you a little more money. Same thing when the dealer takes in a trade-in, they have to recondition the vehicle, they have to repair the vehicle, be selling standards. That will add costs as well.
Meanwhile, gas prices have recently pushed higher, but it's more about spring break demand than tariffs right now, according to AAA.
Obviously, anytime we talk about tariffs, markets react right away. Potentially retailers could react right away, but we have not seen that in recent weeks.
AAA says tariffs on imports from Canada could squeeze drivers in the northern portion of the country.
Northern states in New England, along the Midwest, all those states that are closest to Canada do rely on gasoline from Canada in many cases. So they could be seeing some effects.
But AAA also notes the national average is about 40 cents lower per gallon than this time last year. And the auto tariffs, part of a broader tariff strategy from the Trump White House. The White House says that President Trump will hold an event on Wednesday afternoon where he will announce plans for further reciprocal tariffs, though the details are not yet firm. That's leaving U.S. businesses and U.S. trade partners somewhat anxious. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Republican Congressman Darrell Issa sued California Secretary of State Shirley Weber earlier this month with a singular focus, his 2026 re-election bid. KPBS's Amita Sharma explains his suit targets the state's rules on tallying mail-in ballots.
California law allows mail-in ballots postmarked on or before Election Day to be counted if they're received within 7 days. In his lawsuit, Issa calls the practice unconstitutional. He argues it illegally extends Election Day, and he maintains the state law injures his prospects for future elections because the extension gives Democrats an unfair advantage. He contends that while his Republican supporters cast, quote, valid and timely votes, the California law forces him to spend extra money, time, and resources for the state to count mail-in ballots received after Election Day, which he characterizes as, quote, illegal and invalid votes. In a written statement to KPBS, Issa said, for years, California state officials have turned Election Day into a month of voting, and it has harmed the vital credibility of our democracy. It's time to establish a common sense standard and support clear law to ensure that every California voter can have confidence in our elections. San Diego Congressman Juan Vargas, a Democrat, believes ICE's suit will fail.
He can sue anything he wants and anybody he wants, but it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, the law is the law, and California can do this, and it did, and that's that.
Democratic Congressman Mike Levin says he believes ICE's lawsuit is intended to, quote, gin up more fear, uncertainty, and doubt about elections. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
If government is made for the people, made by the people, and answerable to the people, then some of the people, it appears, are turning away from the job. KPBS's Public Matters reporter Amita Sharma joins me to talk about political apathy, detachment. Welcome, Amita.
It's good to be with you, Maya.
So you've spoken to a number of San Diegans about why they're turning away from the job. Tell us what they told you.
Well, one woman I spoke to, she's a pediatrician. She is a registered independent who leans Democratic. She didn't want her name used. She told me that she has felt helpless and hopeless in the face of federal cuts to children's programs. So what she has done is she has hyper-focused on her day-to-day work in helping youngsters and their families instead of lobbying for them on a larger platform. Another woman I spoke to, a Republican, said that she used to channel her political upset into activism, but she said it's become so toxic. The environment has become so toxic that she has had to withdraw. Several of the people I've spoken to have said the same thing, that the onslaught of negative news daily out of Washington has impacted them. It's affected their mental health, and so they've had to disengage. I spoke with historian Heather Cox Richardson about this. She said it's completely understandable that this is happening. She suggests that people go out there and do what they love. Withdraw for a little bit, do what they love, but then re-engage and never to isolate.
Making you feel overwhelmed and making you turn away is a key technique of authoritarians. They want you to turn away. They want you to throw up your hands and say, everybody's alike, or worse, to say everything is so confusing. We need to have a strong man assert control over everything so that once again we have order.
Cox Richardson says happiness and socializing are especially important now.
Because one of the things that political scientists will tell you is that the way a population becomes dominated by an authoritarian is by sucking all the hope and joy and community out of it.
But there are other reasons for disengagement. There are people who are struggling to get by and truly cannot find the time to learn more about politics and its effects on their lives. And there are some, especially among the affluent, who believe no matter what happens politically, their wealth will always protect them, and they simply don't care that others in society are suffering. Some people have retreated from staying on top of the news and stepped back from political participation because they feel like their voices don't matter. San Diego Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs says that's especially true for newer voters.
And I know for a lot of young people, it really feels like none of this matters to me. Even when you guys were in power, you didn't address the things that matter to me. And so, and I understand that frustration. Look, I think that we, as a party, didn't address some of the biggest issues facing people around the cost of living. You know, we here in San Diego know the cost of living has been an issue for a very long time. And that's like basically all I've talked about my entire political career. But the party took much too long to realize that that was an issue.
She says she understands the feeling that the system is broken beyond repair.
And so, yeah, maybe go ahead, let Elon blow it all up. I think what's going to happen is that people are going to start to feel actually how much the government is involved in their lives, whether it's Head Start or Medicaid or Medicare and Social Security. I think we're going to start to see people really feel that no matter how insulated they think they are, they really aren't, and these decisions do have consequences.
The solution may come back to voters, for people to decide that it is their job to commit to being informed and follow through as citizens, which Corrine Creighton, Vice President of the Brennan Center for Justice's D.C. office, describes as
to recognize that the people who are in power work for you and that they are accountable to you, but only accountable if you show up and demand that they be.
And one last thing, Maya. You know, in November of last year, 86 million of the 245 million eligible American voters did not cast ballots. Here in San Diego, 25% of voters stayed home. And I also want to make the point that withdrawing, disengagement is not uniquely American. It is not unique to this time. Plato said more than 2,300 years ago that the price of apathy is to be ruled by evil men.
Well, thank you so very much, Amitha. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Maya.
And the story is part of our Public Matters project. You can learn more about it on our website at kpbs.org/publicmatters.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, the world braces for another round of tariffs from the Trump administration. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An investigation is underway after a woman died from a fall at the U.S.-Mexico border last night. A man who also fell was taken to the hospital. It is the latest in a number of falls at the southern border. According to UC San Diego Health, the number of patients treated for injuries from falls at the border has increased every year since 2019. Our media partner KGTV spoke to a doctor who says the height of the wall, which increased under the Trump administration, has made falls more dangerous.
The length of stay of a patient who has a more severe injury adds to the cost, because hospital days, anyone who's ever been in the hospital or had someone in the hospital, the hospital days are quite expensive. And so that cost is a real cost. We didn't even talk about how there's a limited number of resources, not just the finances, but in terms of how many patients can I and my team take care of.
And the cost to treat these patients now reaches up to $243,000 per person, paid by taxes. San Diego police are working with Border Patrol on the investigation and did not release further details. There are a lot of things that we can do without in life, but water is not one of them. Fortunately, the San Diego County Water Authority says it has plenty of water for the foreseeable future. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more on the current water situation and an effort to keep the price of water under control.
It's something we're reminded of every so often. We live in an arid climate. Droughts happen. Add in the unpredictable element of climate change, and the difficulty of planning for a stable water supply becomes evident.
I'll start with the northern Sierra snowpack levels.
This morning, the Water Authority provided an update on our water situation.
Currently, the northern Sierra snowpack is at 108% of normal, with more snow in the forecast later this week.
That's very good news, because the Northern Sierra provides a lot of the state's water. The situation closer to home is not quite so robust.
We are currently at 48% of normal conditions for rainfall this water year.
But not a big deal, says Efren Lopez, and he says that's thanks to years of planning, building out, and maintaining our water infrastructure.
It doesn't really have an impact on how much water we can use on a day-to-day basis, and really we can go through several droughts and it won't have an impact in the San Diego region.
But getting to that level of resilience has not come cheap. Over the last few decades, the Water Authority has invested many, many millions in expanded storage and the water desalination plant in Carlsbad, which provides a drought-proof source of water. While county water residents can take some solace in the fact that we're not running out of water, at least not anytime soon, there are also those higher rates and more to come. But the Water Authority says they're working on that too. The Water Authority says we have so much water that we're actually in the process of selling a limited amount to other regional water purveyors. And those funds, they say, will eventually help local ratepayers. They've allowed the Water Authority to create a rate stabilization fund.
A rate stabilization fund is a mechanism for us to smooth out those rates over time. Because of the 2 wet years and that lost water sales, we've had to use that rate stabilization fund to mitigate rates, or they would have been even higher.
As it is, the Water Authority's rates went up 14% last year. Dan Denham says they won't know how much rates will go up this year until midsummer. But when we're talking about a substance without which life itself would be impossible, it does tend to put the financial costs in perspective, as painful as they are. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Another round of rain means fresh potholes on our roads. A local engineer is explaining why it's such a problem here in San Diego. Ryan Monraz is with TMC Engineering, which specializes in asphalt, paving, and sealing services. He told KGTV much of the city's infrastructure is outdated. According to a recent city report, 34% of the streets are in poor or worse conditions. And that report explains the city staff are managing the problem reactively as opposed to protectively. This due to a lack of funding and resources.
A lot of these roads haven't seen a mass overlay. They're not up to spec. You know, these roads were paved 20, 30 years ago. You can only put a bandage on a really bad problem for so long.
And Ryan says other contributing factors are our coastal climate and all the construction happening right now. He says moisture can deteriorate asphalt and more development leads to heavier trucks on the road.
Well, as we take a look at what's going on here this evening and tonight, it's still windy. We still have some showers around, and there's even a little bit of light snow on the west-facing slopes of the mountains. Very breezy. We have gusts of 35 miles per hour near the coast. Some mountainous areas still gusting to around 60 miles per hour. And it's an active time. Even Thursday, we're going to have a few more rain showers and a few snowflakes in the mountains. But looking ahead to the weekend, we're going to get warmer, and it will turn a lot nicer soon. But we have several more hours here with the wind advisories in effect across southwest California here and all the way down to the Mexican border. So San Diego County in its entirety under a wind advisory. So still very breezy. A lingering shower is out there. Tonight we're going to be down to 55 degrees, and tomorrow most of us will be dry. There could be a few lingering showers in the mountains, though. It's going to be maybe a wet snowflake or rain shower mixed in. Highs around 35 at Mount Laguna, so very chilly here for early April. The coastal spots will be into the low to mid 60s, and Wednesday still cool across the region, but again still some lingering rain showers in the mountains. You'll notice that the coastal areas will probably be dry, but into at least Wednesday afternoon and evening. Near some of the mountains and on the west-facing slopes, still some occasional little spots of rain or wet snowflakes. A weak disturbance is going to pivot through on Thursday, bringing a bit of an increase in some of this shower activity, especially into the mountains. We could see a few showers near the coast, though, on Thursday as well. And then we're going to dry back out more decisively for the weekend. So a brief shower or two for the coastal areas on Thursday. Temperatures do ramp back up to 72 on Sunday with a great deal of sunshine this weekend. So things are going to get a lot nicer after this cool spring setback that we've been experiencing this week. It is good to see some showers out there, though, especially considering how dry we've been through the wet season here in San Diego, especially through the first half of the wet season. Into the inland areas, a brief shower or a few showers there on Thursday, then brighter and drier and warmer to 78 on Sunday. Mountainous areas, still some showers around Wednesday. You could see a few on Thursday. You're going to be a lot more cloudy as well than the rest of us on Thursday through the morning. Other areas will see some cloud cover through the day, too. And then into the deserts, here we're a little more resistant to rain due to downsloping, drying wind off the mountains. But sunshine back up to 87 on Sunday. For AccuWeather, I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
Well, with Easter just a few weeks away, consumers will be on the hunt for lower egg prices. The demand for eggs typically goes up this time of year. So could shoppers be paying more as the holiday approaches? Jen Sullivan looks at what's happening to egg prices.
The high prices of eggs may be beginning to crack. Last week, the wholesale price for white large eggs fell 26 cents to $3 per dozen, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But prices at the grocery store are nearly double.
We are going to be in this for a while.
Emily Metz is the president and CEO of the American Egg Board. This has been a particularly challenging time for these farmers. It's led to a shortage. Some experts say grocery stores have also kept prices high to recoup lost profits, which is why shoppers are shelling out more for eggs.
We have experienced devastating losses as a result of this disease. It takes months and months to get back to being able to produce eggs again.
Here's the good news. In the month of March, prices have consistently come down each week. And that's due to a variety of factors. Fewer avian flu cases, the demand for eggs have dropped, and the Trump administration has pledged $1 billion to help combat the avian flu crisis, including purchasing eggs from other countries like Mexico and Turkey. Here's the bad news. With Easter and Passover coming up, the demand for eggs is expected to rise.
We're expecting that prices will go back up again. Easter is our highest consumption period of the entire year.
Experts are also worried that the spring bird migration could also make avian flu cases go up.
We're certainly hopeful that we can battle back against any cases that might result from spring migration, but we just truthfully don't know.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
And here is a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Canadian actress Jasmine Mooney was detained for 12 days after trying to make a routine trip across the border. She talks with NPR's Leila Fadil about her experience on Morning Edition. And KPBS Midday Edition is answering audience questions about parenting in the digital age. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.